And now, people of Gotham City, the moment you have all been waiting for.
For millions of fans, he will always be remembered as that villainous rascal, the Joker, on the hit television series Batman.
He brought that enormous energy into everything he did.
Delicious!
But before donning the grease paint and green hair, Cesar Romero was one of Hollywood's most versatile actors who maintained a sense of style and sophistication in every role he played.
He was a split personality. He was a baggy pant comedian.
How do you do?
And the other side, he was terribly dignified.
He was a gentleman's gentleman. He would kiss the hand. He would put his arm around you. He made you feel like a delicate little orchid.
While he lived the life of a carefree Hollywood bachelor, Romero's devotion to his family always took center stage.
He held the family together, and he supported the family. He was just a tremendous guy. I think everybody who knew him loved him.
New York City, 1907, a bustling metropolis enjoying unprecedented prosperity brought on by the Industrial Revolution. It was here on February 15th that Cesar Julio Romero Jr. was born into a life of privilege and affluence. His father, Cesar Sr., was a successful exporter of machinery to Cuba's sugar plantations. The hard-working businessman brought to his family a sense of old-world values.
My father was, I guess you might say, a typical Spaniard type. That is, in those days, the father ruled the roost. What he said went, or else there would be some dire consequences.
Cesar's mother, Maria, was the daughter of José Martí, the man known as the liberator of Cuba. Through her father's encouragement, she had blossomed into one of the most promising musical talents in New York.
She was very musical. When she was 18 years old, she sang in Carnegie Hall. But she gave that up when she married.
The Romeros were one of the wealthiest Cuban families living in the United States and made sure that young Cesar and his older sister Maria were exposed to the finer things in life.
He went to the opera with his grandmother and with his parents, and he loved theater. He was just a very cultured man of a privileged childhood.
Cesar was raised to be a well-behaved little gentleman, although nothing pleased the gregarious youngster more than kicking up his heels in the kitchen of his parents' estate.
As a child, the household had 2 or 3 servants from Puerto Rico. One of them was a maid, Victoria, and she loved to dance, and she'd be off in the kitchen practicing her steps to the radio, and little Cesar would sneak in there, and he loved to watch her dance, and she soon started teaching him steps, and he proved to be very agile, and as he grew up, it became a passion with him.
To his mother's delight, Cesar had inherited her poise and grace, as well as her musical ability.
When he was about 8 or 9 years old, he auditioned for the Metropolitan Opera to be in the boys' chorus and got in, and his father forbid it, wouldn't let him do it. His father totally did not approve of Cesar's ever considering going into any sort of theater or performing.
While he was disappointed, Cesar was an obedient boy eager to please his father. He dutifully attended such prestigious private schools as Sanford in Redding Ridge, Connecticut, and Riverdale Country School in upstate New York. By 1921, the Romero household was filled with the laughter of 2 more children, a second daughter, Graciela, and another son, Eduardo. But only 1 year later, their idyllic lifestyle came to an end. The bottom fell out of Cuba's booming sugar market, destroying the family's business and forcing the Romeros to give up their many luxuries. Fortunately, Cesar Sr. had enough savings to keep his family afloat, and he insisted his eldest son attend the collegiate school in New York City. Now over 6 feet tall and strikingly handsome, Cesar continued to make the most of his school years by joining the basketball team. But it was his skill on the dance floor that set him apart from his peers.
He learned to dance because socially that was what you did, and went to tea dances, and he was on all the lists, and he was invited to all the coming out parties because he was a good dancer.
By the time Cesar graduated in 1925, the Romero's savings were beginning to dwindle. And to help support his family, he took a job as a courier at the First National Bank in Manhattan.
While he was working at the bank, he was not a very happy camper, and he wanted any way to get out of it. He had developed this real love and passion for dancing, and to him that was the most fun thing to do, so he loved to go to parties. And if he couldn't get invited on his own, he would crash these parties, and he became very adept at it.
Maneuvering himself through New York's exclusive world of speakeasies, parties, and premieres, Cesar rubbed elbows with the city's most influential citizens.
One of the people he met at these different parties he crashed and went to was Elizabeth Higgins, who wanted to have a dance team, which was quite the rage in the 20s. And because he was such a good dancer and they often partnered together, she suggested that they go into a dance profession together.
Higgins was a wealthy socialite who offered to pay Romero $25 a week to quit his bank job and concentrate on developing their dance routines. Together, the pair eventually won a spot in the musical revue Lady Do. After the show closed, the 19-year-old teamed up with Florence Kelker for a series of engagements at such hot spots as the St. Regis Roof and the Ritz-Carlton.
The tremendous crowds which you see gathered outside the stock exchange are due to the greatest crash in the history of the New York Stock Exchange in market prices.
But in 1929, the stock market crash sent America's economy into a tailspin. Cesar's father lost what was left of his savings and all hope of ever rebuilding the family's fortune.
My father didn't cope so well. He was in his 60s, early 60s, when everything went down the tube. And he had lost his life's work. For a while, they even were worried that he might try suicide.
Cesar was concerned about his father's well-being, and as the eldest son, he took on the responsibility of supporting his parents and 3 siblings.
The family lived on Cesar's income as a dancer and a performer. He took an allowance for himself and sent the rest down to his family.
But his financial worries were relieved when he was spotted by Broadway producer Brock Pemberton. Impressed with Romero's charisma and aristocratic good looks, Pemberton took a chance on the newcomer and asked him to step into the lead role of Count de Rouveau for a nationwide tour of the hit show Strictly Dishonorable. For his stage debut, Cesar won the acclaim of theater critics, who were charmed by the classy young performer. The 23-year-old also captured the heart of nightclub singer Marion Harris, a woman 10 years his senior.
Marion got him to grow a mustache, which became sort of his signature, and they had a hot and everything. And then she had an engagement to go to London, but he had a chance to do a show that was going to be going into New York, and he had these family responsibilities. He had to pay bills, and he needed the job, and she was so angry that he wouldn't go with her to London that broke them up.
He was disappointed about that, but he survived. As far as his true feelings, he didn't show them. He kept them to himself pretty well.
Romero's spirits picked up when he landed his first major Broadway role in the comedy Dinner at 8. His deft comic performance as an insanely jealous chauffeur brought him to the attention of an MGM talent scout who offered the actor a 1-year contract.
He was certainly excited when he told us about the fact that he had gotten a contract. He said, "I'm a little worried about how it'll work out. I'll do my damnedest to stay there and be a movie actor."
By now, even Cesar's father had accepted his choice of profession, and the whole family was excited as the 27-year-old boarded a train for California. In April of 1934, Cesar arrived in Los Angeles and was quickly welcomed into the glamorous Hollywood social scene. For his first studio feature, Romero played a gigolo in MGM's The Thin Man, starring William Powell and Myrna Loy. While the film was a huge hit, Romero went unnoticed, and MGM let his contract lapse. But Cesar had become a regular fixture on the nightclub scene and used the connections he made on the dance floor to his advantage.
Because he would be at all the parties at nighttime with the different clubs, he developed a network of people who referred him to the next person to help him with his career. And before his MGM contract was finished, he was offered a contract over at Universal Pictures.
Most of his time at Universal, however, was spent on loan to 20th Century Pictures, where head of production Darryl Zanuck made sure he was cast in a wide variety of roles.
Who gave your ancestors those lands?
The crown.
What a crown can give, a crown can take away.
But it is not the crown who takes them away, but my Lord Cardinal. Every day you gather more power to yourself. Soon you will have the whole of France in the palm of your hand for your own selfish ends.
With Sir Arch deposed, you will be king of all northern India. How many troops has he?
60,000 and 20,000 horses.
So he proved in 2 pictures to Zanuck he could play a Frenchman, he could play someone from India, and he had the zest and that exotic look that made him quite believable in both parts. And that cemented a friendship with Darryl Zanuck.
But Romero believed that his big break had finally come when Paramount Pictures cast him opposite Marlene Dietrich in Joseph von Sternberg's The Devil is a Woman.
And do you know who sent this? Your friend, Pasquale.
You're a liar. Let me see it. He must be mad. Why, he told me that you destroyed his life.
If I destroyed your life, you couldn't write such a letter, could you?
I'd wring your neck.
Kiss me, Antonio.
Von Sternberg, who was known for his ability to create some of the most beautiful images on screen, was the first director to fully emphasize Romero's stunning good looks.
He was unlike anyone else in pictures. I don't know anybody like him. He had a very regal look. He was very photogenic. His coloring was wonderful.
He had the dark, polished hair and that whole sleazebag kind of look. I found it most enchanting because it was dangerous and yet safe, and I think women love that.
Romero was pinning his hopes on The Devil is a Woman to catapult him to the top, but was disappointed when the film failed at the box office. Over the next 2 years, Universal continued to loan Cesar out to other studios for a series of supporting roles. Although he had only been in Hollywood for 3 years and already had made an astonishing 22 movies, Cesar Romero feared that at the age of 30 his career had peaked and he had nowhere to go but down.
Mr. Khan, here's your necklace.
May Allah bless and protect thee for the rest of thy days.
Thank you very much.
In 1937, Cesar Romero was on loan to the newly formed 20th Century Fox, where studio chief Darryl Zanuck put him to work in Rudyard Kipling's Wee Willie Winkie, starring Shirley Temple. The film was directed by John Ford, and Romero was cast as Kota Khan, a regal chieftain whose heart is stolen by a pint-sized private.
Please don't laugh at me, Mr. Khan.
Allah himself would laugh, my child.
Then you want to fight, and I thought you were good. You had such nice eyes. Please, Mr. Khan, please don't have any war. Please don't.
Between your people and mine, little one, there can be only war.
His role as an Afghan rebel leader, which was both villainous and sympathetic, did a lot for the picture and did a lot for his career. And Zanuck, who already was very fond of him, hired him on at Fox.
Zanuck signed Romero to a 7-year contract and capitalized on his flair for comedy by teaming him with Don Amici, skating sensation Sonia Henney, and 28-year-old Ethel Merman in Happy Landing. Playing a philandering band leader, Cesar turned in an energetic performance that poked fun at his suave, sophisticated image.
Flo and I are in love all over again, aren't we, darling?
Oh, so you phoned him to come down here, did you?
Yeah, I mean, no. Look, darling, it was like this. Oh, don't, Flo, don't. You know I'm crazy about you. I don't want to leave you.
Now, look, I'm taking you back while you're still in one piece. Get your hat. We're leaving.
He's not going with you. Now get out of here before I wrap this around your neck.
Don't you throw that!
One of the things that you notice about Romero once he started working at Fox is there's a levity about his performance. He was guaranteed a contract. He knew the studio boss liked him. He really developed and flowered and blossomed.
Romero continued to delight audiences with his flair for slapstick when he re-teamed with Henny in My Lucky Star.
Hey, wait a minute. How do you do?
Zanuck's strategy for Cesar was paying off, and the likable star continued to spice up a variety of films, including Wife, Husband, and Friend with Loretta Young, and The Little Princess, which re-teamed him with Shirley Temple. Enthralled by the glamour of the movie business, 31-year-old Romero could be spotted nightly with Hollywood's brightest stars. And while he never got the girl in his pictures, off-screen, Cesar was the escort of choice for actresses like Linda Darnell, Ann Sheridan, and Joan Crawford.
If you didn't have someone to take you, they'd get someone to. Cesar Romero was very busy. He was escorting everyone.
He took great care of us. He was a good conversationalist. And wherever we went, of course, there was always dancing. And it was just great fun to be with him.
Cesar was a favorite guest on the A-list party circuit, where old friend George Murphy tagged him with an unlikely nickname.
George Murphy was giving people nicknames, like the big fat guy he called Slim, and the bald guy he called Curly. And then he looked at Cesar and he said, "Hey, how you doing, Butch?" And everybody just laughed because he was such a patent leather, elegant lover. To call him Butch was like a riot, and it stuck.
But Hollywood hadn't gone to Cesar's head, and family remained an important part of his life.
After he became successful in Hollywood, he took care of his entire family. He moved them all out here. He put his brother through school. He paid for his niece's wedding, and he kept a huge family afloat.
In 1939, Romero made an appearance as a sidekick in The Return of the Cisco Kid, starring Warner Baxter. The Cisco Kid was one of Fox's most popular serial westerns, and when Baxter left the title role, Romero was asked to take over. Beginning in 1940 with Viva Cisco Kid, Cesar Romero seamlessly stepped into the boots of the Latin hero.
Ándale! You like this? Exciting, no?
I must confess it isn't dull.
No, it is never dull with Senor Don Juan Chicuelo. It's always big excitement, big danger.
You're a very good driver.
Oh, gracias. You know, it's very funny. This is the first time I ever drive a stagecoach.
Over the next 2 years, he starred in 5 more installments of the successful series.
Oh, will you have a drink with me?
No, but I'll dance with you.
Senorita, it's an honor.
In this period, playing the Cisco Kid, he got an awful lot of fan mail, and this came in every week. And he, to a lot of women, was a sex symbol, and it made him a leading man and a star at 20th Century Fox.
With his career soaring, Romero splurged on a sprawling French colonial home in Brentwood, a favorite neighborhood for many of Hollywood's most illustrious stars.
Oh, it was unbelievable. We were on Salt Air, just north of Sunset, and in the first house was Cesar Romero, whom we all called Butch, and a couple of houses up was Tyrone Power and Annabella's next door. Rocky and Gary Cooper. It was so fun, you know, in those days. Everybody was younger than springtime and having a ball. It was a wonderful, magical time.
Romero and neighbor Tyrone Power immediately hit it off and became fast friends.
He loved Tyrone. I know he loved this man. They were like buddies, and they ran around together. They double dated. But Tyrone Power was such an unbelievable star that there was a part of Cesar that was starstruck himself, and I don't think he could believe that his best friend was Tyrone Power.
By the end of the 1930s, Europe was being torn apart by a Second World War, which threatened to spill over onto American shores. To develop allies in South America, the United States initiated the Good Neighbor policy, intended to strengthen ties between the two continents. When Hollywood quickly joined the propaganda campaign, Cesar Romero's Latin looks and Cuban heritage made him one of the hottest tickets in town.
Querida mia, how can I gamble when I have no money?
When I have proved that with my own eyes, I still not believe it.
No, Rosita, no! No!
Let me search you.
With me, it is a question of dignity. Can't you wait until you're asked?
No!
No, Rosita, déjame, no me hagas eso.
In 1941, Fox paired him with Brazilian bombshell Carmen Miranda in their big-budget extravaganza, Weekend in Havana, co-starring John Payne and Alice Faye.
He would add a little bit of humor to it, a little bit of a glint in his eye, a little bit of comedy, and then cast Carmen Miranda. And so to put the two of them together was creating a very combustible force.
I have spent your money. I have lost at gambling. I have lied to you, but never have I been untrue to you.
Yeah, I believe it.
I have only gone with Senorita Spencer because I lost your money. I was trying to earn some to give back to you. Senor Williams paid me to take her out.
What? What? Wait a minute. Come on, you. Come on. Is it true what this liar say?
Well...
Oh, so you had to arrange even this, you heel?
Weekend in Havana was the perfect vehicle for Romero's many talents, and the Latin lovers' sizzling chemistry warmed the hearts of audiences across the country. The following year, Cesar was re-teamed with Carmen Miranda and John Payne for the musical comedy Springtime in the Rockies, also starring Betty Grable.
You want me here because you're lonesome, then you try to get rid of me. You want me to come, you want me to go. Now, what do you want me to do?
I'll tell you, Victor.
What, Vicky?
Let's play gin rummy.
Yeah, gin rummy? Are you kidding?
Paired with Grable on the dance floor, Romero showed off some of the nimble steps that had once made him the toast of Manhattan.
He could do any kind of a dance there was. It's very surprising to see someone that large in stature to be so nimble. And he was very graceful. I loved to watch him dance, I really did.
I'm a jitterbug.
Can you cut a rug?
I can cut the rug just like a Yankee Doodle dandy.
In just 5 years, Cesar Romero had gone from contract player to one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. But the world was about to change, and so too was Romero's carefree life in the limelight. On December 7th, 1941, Japanese bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, plunging the United States into the Second World War. 35-year-old Cesar Romero enlisted in the military along with such stars as Jimmy Stewart, Clark Gable, and Tyrone Power. Assigned to an assault transport, Cesar patrolled the waters of the Pacific.
He saw so many of the movie stars going into the service, and here he was, a bachelor. I'm not sure why he picked the Coast Guard, but he deliberately enlisted as an enlisted man. He said he didn't feel it proper that they walk in and say, "Here I am, a celebrity, make me an officer."
The unassuming actor insisted on no special treatment from his shipmates, but Cesar found it impossible to escape his celebrity.
The Marines all around recognized him. They said, "Hey, Cisco. Hey, Cisco this, Cisco that. Look, hey, give me your autograph."
In 1944, after 8 months at sea, boatswain's mate Romero was shipped stateside to make morale-boosting appearances at munitions factories across the country. When peace was declared in 1945, Cesar returned to Los Angeles, where he was greeted by a house full of relatives.
When the war ended, Cesar came back, and there was a house full of family, and there was no room for Cesar, the master of the house. So he said, "Don't worry about it." He said, "I'll build an apartment over the garage."
With a large family to support, Cesar was anxious to return to work, but he worried that his 3-year absence from the screen may have hurt his career. Romero's first assignment after the war was in the musical comedy Carnival in Costa Rica. The film performed modestly at the box office, but Cesar had high hopes for his next project. He was set to co-star with his old pal Tyrone Power in an adaptation of the best-selling novel Captain from Castile. Hoping to drum up publicity for the production, 20th Century Fox sent Cesar and Tyrone on a promotional tour of South America.
Tyrone Power and Cesar Romero are off on a vacation. Wonder where they're going.
Well, we're going to start off with Mexico, then go to Guatemala and the other Central American republics.
So from California, they start on that quiet, lazy vacation. Panama is the first stop. They're received by President Jimenez. Their vacation becomes a goodwill tour.
Butch told me later that was the greatest thing that ever happened to him. The most fun he'd ever had in his whole life. And I can imagine it because Ty had a great sense of humor.
When the 10-week excursion ended, the two friends were whisked off to Mexico, where cameras began to roll on the studio's most expensive production of the year, Captain from Castile.
We stand knocking at the very door of the great Emperor Moctezuma. We shall meet His Majesty face to face, have done with ambassadors and specks of gold. This, gentlemen, is just the beginning.
It was really a very demanding movie. It gave Cesar a very big part, but a part that called for great dimension. He was playing the conqueror of Mexico, and he was on screen a great deal of the time. In fact, he really is the grounding force of the picture.
You, sir! Do you forget where you are? You dare draw your sword at my table?
Sir, the family this man speaks of is my family. The murdered girl was my sister.
I thought I made it clear. We'll have no brawling.
Sir, do you realize what this man represents? With him, the Santa Hermandad, with all its evils, has come to the New World.
Are you a soldier, Captain de Vargas? If not, hand me your sword.
Captain from Castile re-established Cesar Romero as one of Hollywood's most popular and charismatic stars. But in a town where gossip was a favorite pastime, celebrities often found their private lives and sexual habits open to speculation. At the age of 40, the handsome Romero was still unmarried, and rumors about his sexuality and close friendship with Tyrone Power were beginning to raise eyebrows.
They were on location for a long time down in Mexico. So when they got back in town, they were gone a couple of months, then rumors started that they were having an affair, but I don't think so.
There are a lot of stories, of course, that have been passed around. It never occurred to me that there was anything but a very fast, wonderful friendship. And if it extended to more than that, well, who am I to care?
Preferring to remain private, Cesar ignored the gossip and reported back to work at 20th Century Fox Studios. Now in his 40s, his years of being the hot-blooded Latin lover were coming to an end. In 1950, when he was cast in Love That Brute, a remake of his earlier film, Tall, Dark, and Handsome, Romero's current place in Hollywood became all too apparent.
It had been filmed in 1941, and he played the lead in that part. And then ironically, when the picture was remade in 1950, Cesar had the part of the gangster, the subordinate part. So it's sort of a reversal of fortune, you might say.
Shusha. It's not a ghost, but that isn't your fault.
But you were buried.
That wasn't me. Just a reasonable facsimile.
It's you, Ed.
It's not a ghost, but that ain't your fault.
But you're dead. I seen you. We buried you.
Not me, Willie boy. Just a nice, willing substitute. Didn't even argue.
In 1951, 20th Century Fox decided not to renew Cesar's contract, ending their 15-year relationship. With his career in jeopardy, the pressure was beginning to mount on the aging actor.
He hit a point in time where he had all these mouths to feed and he was down to his last several $1,000s and called his agent and said, you know, I'll do shopping center openings, I'll do television, which at that time was like a terrible thing.
But for Cesar Romero, television offered a new beginning. Throughout the 1950s, the versatile performer was a popular guest star on a variety of highly rated programs. In 1954, Romero even headlined his own series, Passport to Danger, which lasted one season. Cesar's bread and butter may have come from television, but the 47-year-old was still very much in demand on the big screen. Over the next several years, the debonair character actor kept himself busy in a string of high-profile films. But in 1958, Cesar suffered a devastating personal loss when his closest friend, Tyrone Power, passed away.
Well, it certainly was a shock to anybody to see that Tyrone, at such a young age, 44, suddenly dies of a heart attack. It gave people pause, and certainly Cesar, who was older, it may have made him think of his own mortality. But this was his great friendship in life, and he would never have another one as close as that.
Greatly saddened by Tyrone's untimely death, Cesar threw himself into his work. But on October 17, 1962, he received yet another crushing blow when his beloved mother died at the age of 81.
She was elderly, it was old, his father had died, and he knew it was inevitable, and it was shortly before Christmas, and he was, heartbroken.
The post-war years had brought Cesar Romero a number of personal setbacks, but through it all, he managed to maintain a successful career. The veteran actor's next assignment, however, was about to bring him more fame than he could ever imagine. As the 1960s got underway, Cesar Romero was still a vital part of the motion picture industry, lending a distinguished air to any film in which he appeared. But the Hollywood that had once enthralled Romero had lost much of its luster since the demise of the studio system.
He was always talking about the good old days, the big parties with all the stars, and how this Hollywood wasn't like that anymore. He'd say in the old days, if you were a star, you were a star forever. I think maybe he missed it.
The 1960s were a decade of youthful exuberance. Children of the post-World War II baby boom, now in their teens, were shaping American culture, and their influence could be seen in everything from fashion to films. Television quickly jumped on the bandwagon with a tongue-in-cheek adaptation of the comic book Batman. Starring Adam West and Burt Ward as the dynamic duo, Batman premiered on January 12, 1966.
Nobody thought when they started doing the series it would become such a big hit. The studio decided to do 2 or 3 things to bolster it up. They decided not to play it straight, but to make it very campy.
Ringside table, Batman?
Just looking, thanks. I'll stand at the bar. I shouldn't wish to attract attention.
And to use a lot of guest stars.
Among the rogues gallery of special guest villains were Burgess Meredith as the Penguin, Frank Gorshin as the Riddler, Julie Newmar as Catwoman, and 58-year-old Cesar Romero as the Joker.
Oh, how delicious it is! The Joker outwits Batman and steals the fabulous jewel collection right out from under his nose! Oh, my playful, pilfering pals, how delicious it is!
We hate to sound a sour note, Joker.
But it's time for us to make our own collection. Destroy them!
Cesar Romero brought an enormous amount of energy to the role. His piercing eyes, his laugh. I don't know how he did it, because he wasn't 22 when he did it.
did have a great inner force. And as the Joker, he let that loose. You saw that wildness, that power, even though it was a silly power.
When I get in an outfit like that, I'm not going to sit there going, I'm going to go, you fall right into it. I thoroughly enjoyed playing the Joker.
It's time for you to sing a different tune, my crooked clown.
Songs are for parties, my Cape Copper. And so is confetti.
The Joker added a new dimension to Romero's already colorful palette of characters. But underneath the villain's pancake makeup, there was still a hint of the real Caesar.
He said, I can't shave my mustache. And we wondered why, but when you think about it, he had such an illustrious and long career, and always with the mustache and very dashing. And so we said, okay, you don't have to shave the mustache. We'll just plaster the white makeup on over your mustache.
Within a few weeks of its premiere, Batman became a national phenomenon, inspiring hairstyles, fashions, and a dance called the Batusi. Batmania was at its peak. In the summer of 1966, 20th Century Fox released a feature-length Batman film that pitted the dynamic duo against every supervillain in the book.
Why, you sniveling sardine? Are you pompous, puffed up penguin? Our friends make peace. Have a shake on me. Ooh, a joke a day keeps the gloom away.
He could open up this other side of him that was so ridiculous. And this thing came out with the big red lips, and he really hammed it up. And he loved it. He said, oh, yeah, that was great fun. He really enjoyed it.
It's all set. He puts his foot here, my secret jack-in-the-box fires, shooting him up through the window, out over the sea, into the waiting arms of Penguin's exploding octopus. What a deliciously humorous trajectory.
And nothing to link us with the crime.
Despite his new fame as the clown prince of crime, Cesar Romero's sense of impeccable style could still be seen when he became a spokesman for Petrocelli suits.
That man, when he came out of the shower, I think, stood tall and lean and wonderful. And I never saw, but I bet his shorts were embroidered and they were just gorgeous because everything about him was meticulous. And maybe this comes from his upbringing in wealth or whatever, but he always dressed like a gentleman.
By the age of 61, Cesar Romero had basked in the glow of Hollywood's glory days, helped usher in the golden age of television, and had become a pop culture icon in the process. But could he escape the role that had turned his career around?
A high-speed computer accidentally drains its brain into a not-so-bright campus cloud.
I think I found a spot for you in my organization.
In the early 1970s, the ever-adaptable Cesar Romero appeared with teen star Kurt Russell in a series of Disney films that included The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes and The Strongest Man in the World. But while 68-year-old Cesar was still eager to work, film roles for the silver-haired character actor were becoming increasingly rare. Unable to give up the profession that had brought him so much joy, he split his time between dinner theater engagements and television guest appearances.
As long as he was working, that's all he cared about. He didn't think in terms of career and is this a smart move or that. It was, will they pay my fee? And then I go to work and I'm a professional. And he loved going to work.
In 1985, the suave star got a chance to act with longtime friend Jane Wyman when he was cast as Peter Stavros in the nighttime soap opera Falcon Crest.
When the writers came up with the fact that they wanted me to get married again, the list of men came in. And in it was Cesar Romero. I said, you stop right there. I mean, you don't have to go any farther.
Cesar relished the glamorous settings on the show, which harkened back to Hollywood's heyday. The role also put Romero back in the spotlight, reminding countless fans of his timeless appeal.
Well, in 3 months, I'll be 80.
He's just right for me.
He's what?
He's right for me. Right for you? Okay. I'll meet you after the show.
Okay.
Romero was now an elder statesman of a bygone era, and he began to gather accolades for his professional achievements, including the Nosotros Golden Eagle Award for his success as a Latino working in the entertainment industry. But on March 24, 1991, Cesar mourned the loss of his sister Maria, who died at the age of 85. The siblings had spent the last 2 decades living together, and Cesar had grown dependent on Maria's companionship and support.
He really surprised us all by, handling it as well as he did, I guess, because yeah, they were lifetime partners. They weren't a married couple, but they may as well have been.
He pondered not having gotten married. Yes, there was a certain amount of loneliness, but his life was so full of people that I don't think he had much time for that. He was far too busy. His dance card was very full.
But Romero's health was becoming fragile, and in 1993, he checked into St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, California. There, he successfully underwent treatment for severe bronchitis and pneumonia, and looked forward to getting back to work.
As long as he was working, he was alive. When he was in the hospital, he was growing a beard because he said, maybe I'll get a part as an old man. He's still working the angles here. How can I be more castable?
But as he was recuperating, complications arose from an undetected blood clot. And on New Year's Day, 1994, Cesar Romero died of heart failure. He was 86 years old.
There was nothing anybody could do. It was terrible shock. We had talked to him and he was feeling fine. And then all of a sudden we learned that he had died.
In a career that spanned 60 years and hundreds of performances, from the womanizing Latin dancer who chased Betty Grable and Carmen Miranda to Batman's greatest foe, the Joker, Cesar Romero always personified the glamour of Hollywood's golden era. But it was the vibrant actor's kind and giving spirit that earned him the respect and the love of fans, family, and friends.
I know he's at peace, and I know he's with his family, and God will take care of him because he was a good man.
To me, he's Captain of Castile, on that horse looking so gorgeous. He was a thorough gentleman, and everybody loved being with him.
He was just so handsome, and he had an aura about him, a true star gentleman aura, magnificent.
You couldn't see him come up the walk and not smile and know you were going to have a good time. A loyal, fun friend.